Hello world, ladies and gentlemen, you are now watching the Jimmy Doane Show, and if it's 4 o'clock on Sunday or Wednesday Eastern Standard Time and you watch it on Facebook, then we are live. And you'll know because we'll get special guests that we're not expecting. So hey everybody, today is the 10th of May 2020 in the time of the plague.
Mother's Day.
That's right, happy Mom's Day to moms everywhere. I'll post a copy of this show up in video format on YouTube and Twitter. Later on I will also timestamp those copies so that it's easy for you to peruse. And if you search around the web for Jimmy Doane, D-O-A-N-E, you can also find us in audio format, places like Libsyn and Spotify and SoundCloud. So join us anytime, anywhere. What is happening? Here we go, all right? And kablamo. We're back on the beach.
Okay, we're back on the beach. This is good.
Mm-hmm.
Along with everybody else, I guess. There.
Yes.
We'll see. So the
safely distancing.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh-huh.
So the virus is still apparently pretty much the big news.
Yes, it's the house cat flu. That's you, Bubby. I guess we're gonna have to put you out. Mm-hmm.
The cat.
You know how cats are, people.
Yeah. Well, the cat is going to meow and take things. Who knows?
It's gonna get in on it one way or the other.
There we are, yeah. So anyway, here, a couple of things. The various councils, so of course, they're still going crazy. And
Councils. Oh, yes, city councils.
City commissions,
yes.
City councils, county commissions.
Yes.
And so forth. They're still going nuts. And we have one here, I had a note for San Antonio. They passed a resolution declaring the term Chinese virus to be hate speech.
Yeah.
It was 11-0, the entire council. This is hate speech.
Yes.
And I don't know, I know that some people had said, well, you're going to call it the Wuhan virus.
Wuhan, yeah.
Wuhan, yeah, because that was where it supposedly originated from.
Right.
But as we say, we've always done before, the Spanish flu.
Right.
You know,
well, see, and they don't even realize it. The reason that they call it that is because this particular virus speaks Chinese.
Yes, of course it does.
So it makes perfect sense. There's nothing else you can.
So anyway, they're calling it the Kung Fu virus.
Kung Flu.
Yeah, Kung Flu, that's right. As hate speech, the Texas city will now ask its citizens to report any anti-Semitic, discriminatory, or racist incidents to the proper authorities for investigation. Now, this is amazing. I mean, you call up on the phone and you say...
They used hate speech.
I want to report some hate speech.
That's right.
This person said it was the Chinese Jewish flu, covered 2 of them.
That's right.
That spoke Spanish, and so there's 3 of them. And it was a girl. That's
right, a Catholic flu.
Our efforts must meet the indiscriminate nature of the COVID-19 with empathy and compassion.
Yes, of course.
For all our neighbors. So the San Antonio, I mean, you wonder about this hate speech. Everything gets covered in. It's San Antonio. I mean, it's nice.
I think we've been lucky that we haven't seen a lot of incidents of. And this is coming from the press, but you don't see this on a daily basis. People are still going to their Asian restaurants. You can still get takeout from them and stuff. You know. Don't order the bat.
No, that's
just
right.
Saying.
No, that's right.
But otherwise, do patronize those places because I mean, look.
What they said was one of the reasons for this is they had reports of Chinese restaurants being. People hollering at them, taking out, calling them bad names because
you brought the virus.
You brought the virus, right? So they had report. Now, one of the things you have to ask yourself is in San Antonio, if it's anything like Gainesville, there's 200 Chinese restaurants there.
Yeah.
So they heard a report or?
Yeah, I mean, something. Come on, that's kid stuff.
Yeah, it is.
That's name calling.
Now the other thing is up in Canada.
We don't need rules against name calling.
No. Well, everything these days, it's interesting, is classified just about as hate speech.
Well, they're trying to take it a step further. Everybody's trying to go make up for past injustices in the system or something, and this is, oh, we'll make something hate speech, and then that'll tamp down on the whole hate concept. But it's a measure too far, because you're getting into the whole speech thing, and then you have to get into speech interpretation, and as we know, that gets super tricky super fast.
Doesn't stop people from doing it all, because even now when you think about it, there's the shaming going on. You know, if you do something like this, somebody will say, "I'm offended." You know, I didn't mean to do what I was talking to this person over here, and suddenly somebody back here is offended.
Well, there's a lot of stuff like that, and there's the dead naming that whole movement.
Dead naming.
Yeah, like you're not supposed to call Caitlyn Jenner Bruce. If you call her Bruce, that's called dead naming. It's literally a crime, I think, in Canada. I think you can be prosecuted.
Well, we're going to talk about this in Canada. Trudeau warns.
Mm-hmm.
He's warned that reopening could send Canada back to confinement.
The Stone Ages.
That's right. Well, what's interesting about this is Trudeau, he represents a pretty good chunk. He's the prime minister, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, he is concerned about the virus's spread in the big province, the country's epicenter. He says any reopening should be gradual. Now, what's interesting, this reminds me of, it's a voluntary thing.
Yeah.
But by the way,
yeah.
If
we will shoot you.
We will shoot you anyway. That's right. We've got a whip here.
Yeah.
And even though if you violate the voluntary part, then it's not voluntary anymore.
Well, this is another thing. You've talked about this. We've talked about this the whole time. I can literally hear the sound of the flood of lawsuits as it approaches.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know, maybe not so much in Canada. I mean, maybe they can do more stuff, but in this country, as we've seen, even in this town. We have a local hero. Go Jeff! Yeah. You know, he's out there opening up a can on the county commission, as somebody needs to, because you can't simply Trudeau's threat here. He says, well, if we risk having to go back into lockdown, well, so there's no risk, because what you're asking us to do is to stay in lockdown. So if that's the worst case scenario, then we're coming out.
If you come out, well, then that's not good enough. Then you have to go back to lockdown, which is the same as lockdown.
Exactly. So
it said, of course, he says we're not in the recovery phase yet.
Yeah.
We're still in the emergency phase.
Yeah.
Which means that at the drop of a hat, at a pin drop, the slightest hint you people
back inside.
That's right.
No, that's not happening. I'm telling you, as I've said from the beginning, people don't do it that way. The governors, you think you have control in the governor's office, you think you have control with the military. The people have control. If the people want to go out, it's like Scott Adams said today, pointed out very cleverly. If they go out today to the beach to try to arrest mothers on Mother's Day, oh, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. I mean, you talk about the lawsuits. I mean, it's this. People are just walking into the twirling blades at this point. Yeah, they are.
Well, it is interesting, because I did see there's a sign on one of the beaches in California. They've actually printed up the sign. This is what you can do, and this is what you can't do.
Yeah.
And of course, what you can't do is you can't go swimming. You can go surfboarding, but you can't go swimming. You can't sit down. You can't have a towel on the beach. You have to stand. You can walk. Let's see, what else?
So you're saying there's nothing arbitrary about these rules, that they're clear-cut, safety, science-oriented.
It is so, it's stunning to think that, you call that open?
It is, this is so predictable. This is, I mean, again, The Simpsons, this is straight out of The Simpsons, where the committee makes these rules for everybody.
Right.
The smart committee.
The geniuses, right.
That's right. The Mensa Committee, which, oh my God, okay, yes, so my people.
The old people.
But you can, that's not, the whole point of a constitution is to protect against stuff like this. And So I am hoping and waiting with popcorn in hand to.
Well, let's talk just for a moment then about our local suit here from your buddy. When is that supposed to be heard? I mean, they're going to.
Well, he also filed with it an emergency motion for injunctive relief.
Okay.
Now, an emergency motion.
Now, just to tell them what the suit's about.
So the suit is about wearing the face masks.
Okay.
In our town, our city or our county commission has instituted a rule that anybody who goes into or works at a retail establishment has to have a mask. And I think now they may have backed off of it today for the people walking in.
Really?
Maybe that's. I heard a rumor. I can't even remember where I heard that.
I was looking today and I didn't see anything like that.
Yeah, I think corporate told me about that. I'm not sure if that's accurate. But anyway, that's what the lawsuit is about. It's about these masks. And it's about two issues that were particularly raised, legal issues, which is your privacy right. That is, if you're wearing a mask, ostensibly it says something about your health. And there's an implication there, and that's
well, one of the exceptions to the mask was if you could bring a note from your doctor saying it was unhealthy for you to have a mask on.
Well, and there's all kinds of exceptions to the mask, and that speaks to the arbitrary nature of the rule.
The mask, a new superhero.
Yeah, well, it's been I know. So. Yeah, it's and then there's the concept of it's a taking because it forces you to make a purchase.
Right.
And rarely does that happen except in healthcare, thanks John Roberts.
Right. Well, it is interesting that as I talked about was the taking is like, now of course the price has gone up on masks, but it's $5.
Right.
But as Jeff outlined in the suit, he said, but collectively, if you want, I hate to use that word, but ostensibly 200,000 people, it's big money.
Well, and there's also the concept of it could be $5 a day. You may need technically you need a new mask every day or every exposure period or whatever it is, and the mask doesn't work after a certain period of time, and you muck it up and that kind of stuff. So now you could be talking about, $5 a day, that's real cash.
Yeah.
So.
Almost as much as a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, well, it is, and that's, as everybody knows, real cash. So it could be considered that. I said that he should stake out a 12th or 9th Amendment claim for people's right to work, which is just an implicit thing that everybody knows.
Right.
And it's if it's in the Constitution anywhere, it's certainly in the 9th Amendment, and there could be some other ones sequestered in there in the 9th Amendment that, like, for example, your ability to choose what kind of clothing you wear is something, how you dress yourself, how you expose yourself to disease in your own way or not. You may believe that you want to get the virus to get herd immunity, and so that may be your choice to expose yourself, and so wearing a protective mask interferes with your right to breathe.
Right. Yeah. No, it does, and it is interesting to see how people are the thing about it. Of course, the city has. It's my understanding that the city has sort of decided not to really enforce it.
Well, there's nothing stupider than making a law that you're not going to enforce.
Well, except for the fact. Remember now, the county has jurisdiction over the city.
Right.
So if the sheriff happens to walk through a city restaurant and see you without a mask, I suppose they could slap you down on the ground.
Right. So you say hi to the city police officer, and then the sheriff
and the
beats
sheriff
you
right behind, and then who knows? Maybe arrest the policeman.
Yeah.
The sheriff says, I'm hauling you in.
Again, this is part of the waves. That's the square wave part of the crossing of the streams there.
Yeah.
As the powers ramp up, you're going to have city versus county versus state.
We always do.
Well, right, but this is going to be a big one because people's constitutional rights are implicated all over the place, and they're popping out with these rules willy-nilly, and people are used to the concept of there's somebody, they lay out a rule and people are like, okay, well, we'll follow it.
Well, I was reading the way it's supposed to be enforced, and supposedly the store owner is supposed to not allow somebody in. Now, of course, I guess they can not wait.
Yeah, and they're fining the store owner. Allegedly,
but but the way it works is who's going to stop them? I mean, you walk in and you don't have your mask on, and the store owner says, we're not going to, you can't be in here. And I suppose then it might be a trespass, but they have to call somebody.
Right,
they have to call codes enforcement.
The cops.
They have to call codes enforcement or a cop.
Right, exactly. Right. And that's the whole point. And that is why you do not pass rules that you do not intend to enforce. Because then you get situations like we've seen all week, where we've got cops throwing moms into cuffs and stuffing them in the freaking car. It's all over the internet, and it's anecdotal, but still. Well, it's unnecessary, and those are the kind of things that are going to get lawsuits. We've seen Miss Luther, we talked about last time, has been freed by the Texas Supreme Court. She did it exactly happened what we said, which is she won a great victory for the other side. She came out to cheers and applause,
right? And
hopefully they established some kind of precedent, but. Here it's 4 days later, and we're still looking at. I read an article about 2 women who got busted doing the hairdressing in their basement.
Yes,
and they were facing 6 months in jail, which is a normal charge.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
but who ratted them out? You wonder. Obviously, some neighbor, saw somebody going.
Exactly, a vindictive neighbor or a family member or something. It's some kind of crap, and at the same time, they're letting people out of the other side of the jail for no good reason.
Right.
Well, I mean, for coronavirus.
Right.
So that's everybody. So well, I mean, if you're gonna let people out. Why not just
real criminals?
Right. Why not just not throw as many people in?
I just would say though that what's surprising to me is when the snitch calls up and says, "My neighbor is doing hair in her basement."
Mm-hmm. Is there a line?
Yeah. Well, the thing that gets me is the sheriff or whoever's on the other end saying, "Really? This is what are you doing? I'm not sending anybody out there for that. I got better."
And then they put the phone down and they go, "Oh, it says right here on this piece of paper that we have to." And
okay, well, the piece of paper is not going to arrest anybody.
Well, and some sheriffs are doing that.
I know they are, and that's what's sad. Common sense obviously has vaporized in a lot of instances.
Yeah, well, that's what we're seeing everywhere. It's coming out who's got it, who's using it, who's not, that kind of stuff. And there's some other stories at some point we'll get to.
Okay. All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see how there's going to be some. It looks as though there's going to be some permanent changes in some areas. I know that I saw a photograph, for instance, where one of the airlines that had said they weren't going to fill up the middle seat, and somebody took a picture, and all the middle seats were filled up. They packed it. And they all had masks on, the people.
Well, look, we still very well, easily could find out that this coronavirus is far more contagious than anybody suspected, and that it's already gotten through everybody's populations, and that it's just a factor of testing as to how many people you find had it or have it. And then at that point, people will not be afraid of it in the least, and especially young people. They'll have no problem.
Well, yeah.
Anybody, if you're under 50 years old, this thing is less deadly to you than the flu. So if you're not worried about the flu, you're not worried about this thing. That's just all there is to it. You could be thinking, well, I don't want to be a carrier because I don't want to kill grandma, and because it's more deadly, far more deadly for grandma than the normal flu. But that's if you don't have grandma at home or whatever it is.
Well, they use that justification. I was looking at the governor of New York, for instance, and he said, if you're out without a mask, you're killing me. You are going to kill me. It's my freedom that is
only if he goes out.
Well,
right.
Again, it's on and on. That's the basis, though. And of course, he can call up the sheriff.
He wants to limit their freedom so that he can exercise his freedom.
Yeah.
But if he can let them go out, he can't go out though. If he's vulnerable, then anything can kill him. Versus they can go out. Maybe they're carriers, maybe they're not. So
it's obvious that the vast majority of people are not.
Well, that's not necessarily obvious. They
obvious
people
to me.
Well, people may have had it, and so, it got around in a way that was highly suspicious.
Yeah.
like I said, when the Ebola outbreak happened, and you look at this, we got this graph here, again, I mean, yeah, okay, Ebola is supposed to be on the contagiousness scale somewhere about halfway between what they thought this one was, like a 1.5 up to a 3 or something. And Ebola is like a 2 on this scale in terms of contagiousness. And there were 2 cases of Ebola that made it to the United States. This thing spread around like it was freaking chicken pox.
Yeah.
I mean, it got everywhere. I would not be surprised at all if they find out it's a 7 on the communicability scale. And yet then it's down here at 0.1 or so on the mortality, and that's fine, but that also means people can go right back as much as possible to what they were doing beforehand.
Better anyway. I mean, if you can shut down the entire country for something like this, you got a real problem. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Bad news. One of my heroes, Little Richard, died.
Oh, yeah.
87 years old.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. I read a little thing about him. His name was Richard Penniman.
Okay.
Actually, was his real name. But Little Richard, and he was, when I was growing up, I mean, he was Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis, Little Richard.
Good golly, Miss Molly.
Yeah, Good golly, Miss Molly. And I thought it was interesting. They did mention, because I had heard this. I remember a very dear friend of mine in high school, when we were listening to these songs, and the one that was played on the radio was the Pat Boone version of these things, and it was very laid back. Pat Boone was the all-American,
right?
I mean, he was white,
right?
And he was the all-American white guy, and actually his version of, I forget what song he had. It was a cover for Little Richard, and it went a little higher. I mean, Little Richard, I think his song, at least one of his songs maybe got to number 7. A couple of them got to number 12 on the Billboard charts or so forth. Pat Boone, on one of his covers got up a little higher than Little Richard's thing because it was a white thing. I can tell you. But I remember my friend was looking at me saying, "What do you do? You can't like that Pat Boone version. It's a Little Richard." He was telling me it's the best thing you ever heard. It took me a couple of months to realize that was true. So anyway, I thought it was too bad. But 87, he made it. Bone cancer.
He was 87 back then. I remember. When he did that. Let's see, what did he do? He was like an appearance on Back to the Future or something, or...
Well, he also was in a movie, The Girl Can't Help It, and some other movie. He was in some movies in the 80s and 70s and 80s. He'd become a preacher and everything. He was all over the place. He was, he had a lot of people were wondering what about his sexuality and everything, and on and on. It was all, but it was great. I mean, he was a great guy, and he really, as I say, he reminded me a little bit of Elton John was one, for instance, that thought he was great, because the way he did the piano, and Jerry Lee Lewis and so forth, they were all in the same thing. Okay, the next item that I've got here, which is I'm going to have talk back to the protests, mostly white crowds. It says here. Are how the pandemic has won. The protesters, they hop barricades to surf. They cite the Constitution. They wave American flags. They sport Trump 2020 gear.
Where did you find this? Salon or something?
No. This I don't know. They rail against vaccines in other states, including Michigan. Protesters have shown up at government buildings carrying rifles. Yeah, they did do that.
Way to loop everybody together, like the anti-vaxxers with the rifle guys and the white
guys, right? And that's the thing. And they said the raucous protests in wealthy coastal Orange and San Diego counties at the state capitol in recent days have highlighted racial and class disparities amid a pandemic that has killed more than 2,500 Californians, a disproportionate number who are black or Latino. And the idea is that they're not out protesting, even though their class, group, whatever, is dying. But the evil white people. Well, they've talked about. That was one of the things that I've seen. There was an article in today's paper also that as this coronavirus dissipates or whatever, we have to readdress the racial disparities and so forth, and economic disparities. And I'm thinking, you've been doing this for 50 years. You haven't got it right yet. And that kind of talk to me is the divisive talk.
Well, if it comes down to creating some law which separates us by our race, then that's exactly what it is. And there's a lot of people who feel like that's what's necessary to reestablish equality, and that's the opposite of what needs to happen. What needs to happen.
They've already got those laws.
Well, I know, but they want more.
Action. They're
I know.
busing everything.
I know, but they want more. They think those worked to some extent, and they want more. And we have the opposite opinion. Look, you have to treat everybody equally at some point. That's what they want. That's what we want. That's what everybody wants. And the only way to do that is to go ahead and start doing that. And if you establish laws which treat one group differently from another, you're institutionalizing inequality in America, which is anti-American. They're not supposed to do that. So,
well, individuals can discriminate all you want, as far as I'm concerned.
that's right. I said institutionalizing.
Right, yeah.
You want, at an individual level, you want everybody to work their crap out. That's fine. But you don't want laws which treat people differently. And
I thought personally, in the first Star Wars, when that guy went up to Luke and he said, "And I don't like you."
oh yeah. Uh-huh.
So, I mean, what is that? I mean, he just doesn't like you.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's fine, but he's not allowed to then take out his.
He lost an arm.
Yeah, well, he did. That's because he attacked him. You
Yeah.
know? So now there is an analogous story in the press this week that's
Okay.
been hot news, and I guess I'll bring it up because it's a legal issue. It has to do with exactly this stuff. Big racial episode in the news in Georgia this week.
Oh yeah, okay. What was?
Okay, so what it was is there's a video of a black man got shot basically.
Oh
and
right,
died.
right, by a father and son.
Right, two white guys, and so the immediate impression is it's two white guys. They have a pickup truck and shotguns
And vigilantes.
Right.
And they chased the guy down.
Right. That's what the narrative is.
Right.
The news is putting that out there as though that's exactly what happened. Like it was a posse of old. They had a noose and they were coming to get him. It could not have been that. Just from the video itself, you know it couldn't have been that, because they weren't chasing him. He was chasing them. He was running up behind their truck at the time. The only video that there's another video out there.
Oh really?
Yeah, but it's a different video, and I'll tell you about that one in a second.
Yeah, because I haven't heard about that one.
Well, this video, the one that's circulated around the internet, though, is actually a truncated video in and of itself, because you don't see the actual moment of the shooting.
Okay.
And that, from a legal perspective, is the critical moment.
Okay.
If you don't see the actual moment of the shooting, then you don't know whether or not somebody was acting in self-defense or not. Because if there was a struggle, whatever we see in the video happened, and then one of the two of those people starts to run away from the situation, and then somebody picks up the gun and shoots him in the back or something like that, that's murder. You can't, if somebody's running away from you, even if they just attacked you, you can't shoot him in the back. Okay, but
Damn.
yeah, but if you're still struggling over the weapon, then it's a question of self-defense. That's the whole Trayvon Martin thing. It's a question of both people have the right to fear for their life if you're struggling over a shotgun. So we don't know what happened from that video, but we do know there's some interesting things about the video, which is, like I said, the black guy runs up to the white guys. If he was being hunted right then by the white guys, you don't run down the middle of the road like a bad horror movie victim. You run off the road. There's other roads you can see clearly. He could just run. He could put distance between.
I've always wondered in the movies, when somebody's running away, why do you run down the middle of the road?
That's literally what this guy does. Okay, he runs down the road. Okay, so there's no possible way that he's running from the people at that time, because you would put distance between yourself and the shotgun. Now, the other thing is, if he's just jogging, there's an insinuation that he's just jogging down the road and he surprised these guys, and these guys were out looking for him, and so here's the thing: they were looking for him. We know now. They made a statement that they said that they thought that they suspected that he was involved in some kind of a burglary, and now there's a video. The second video that came out is, in fact, that guy walking onto, probably trespassing onto a property, a construction zone. They have a video of him clearly walking into a half-built house. But he could have permission, who knows? The point is that you don't go chasing after somebody with your pickup trucks and your shotguns. But this guy is a cop, as we know. And that's exactly what the cops do. If they see somebody burglarizing or trespassing on a construction site, they go after the guy with their guns and they corner the person. And the reason they have their guns is not because of what the person just did. It's because cornered people typically fight, and sometimes for their lives. And so the question is that what happened in this situation? And it looks like it was. It looks like the black guy comes up on the two white guys, and look, they're not out there just like patrolling the neighborhood with shotguns, okay? That's what the media wants you to believe, but that's not what happened. And they didn't go out there just because the guy's black. Like, oh, there's a black guy, get your shotgun, we're going out. No, okay? They obviously clearly suspected him of something. And they were going to, as they said, talk to him about the thing. And it looks like he comes around the truck and just rushes the guy with the shotgun. And you got to ask yourself, if they were hunting him, if they were hunting him, then his first indication of that would have been a shotgun blast. Like when he came around the front of the truck, they wouldn't have wanted to talk to him. They would have just blasted him if they wanted to blast him, right? I mean, why would you not just blast the guy if you're just going to blast him, right? So they clearly were trying to stop him and do something, because if they clearly weren't pointing the gun at him yet, because he'd be dead. He would have been dead in the first second.
Well, there were 3 shots fired. Somebody.
I know. Well, you hear 3 shots, but it's hard to tell because the video gets all
it was kind of blurry there.
With stop action or something.
Okay.
It's weird. It's like you can't really tell. But that's the point, is that you can't tell from the video, number one, because of what I talked about, the self-defense issue. It could all changed in reverse in the last couple of seconds to any party's favor. And so, but yet all over the internet, everybody's ready to convict these 2 white guys.
Oh yeah. Well, the deal was that apparently the sheriff or whoever was waited 2 or 3 months to arrest
Well,
him?
the sheriff looked at it and said, no, that was self-defense.
Yeah.
And if you believe what the guy said, which it makes perfect sense. Everything makes perfect sense if you believe what the white guy said, which is they saw the black guy coming out of the thing. They got their guns to chase after him. Their car actually had been robbed recently. So they were like, well, this is probably the same dude, it's probably the same situation. And so they went to confront him. Now, is that what you want to do? I mean, not me, but they did that. And like I said, the guy's a cop and whatever. So now it comes down to those last couple of seconds before the shot was fired. What was happening? And was the shot fired after the guy, there was some break in the action, or were they still struggling over the gun? Is what it's going to come down to. And so we'll see. But for now, it's remarkable how much anti-white sentiment is all over the internet.
Yeah, it really is. Well, it was interesting. The one you want to hear is there was about a 45-minute discussion by Stefan Molyneux.
Oh, geez.
And he talked about, it made no sense, this all the stuff that's far. Here, the guy lived 10 miles away, and if he was jogging, he was like jogging a marathon.
Okay.
And
he wasn't jogging.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if this is what it was, you sit there and you think, well, wait a minute, this is an awful, and where it was and so forth. It didn't make any sense.
It makes perfect sense if you think of it in the context of he's going over there to construction site to look around to see what he can get.
Right.
He whatever, they see him, they go out to confront him. Then the question only becomes, how does it escalate to, it looks like he just rushes the guy with the shotgun, and then the only question is what happens right before he's shot. And so they could totally get off with a self-defense claim, depending on what the witnesses are going to say. And well,
it'll be interesting because
we'll
Molyneux makes the case that it's all circumstantial. Don't want to make he's very political about don't really know what happened here, but it sure looks funny that here's somebody who is 10 miles from their home, and if they're jogging, they're going to jog 10 miles back. and no water on him or anything. No, where's your if you're going to be out there jogging, this, you're certainly going to want some refreshment of some kind. But oh no, you should, but you don't. And,
right.
Could happen this way, could be,
right,
but still looks suspicious.
Yeah. Well, and then when you combine that with, like I said, nobody runs at the people that are hunting them with guns. You don't do that. That's not what you do. If they were hunting him with guns, the dude in the back of the truck, there's a guy standing in the back of the truck. He would have made a move on him as he's coming around the truck. He would have drawn on him and shot, or drawn on him and said, freeze or something. I mean, there's the only thing that makes sense is what the witnesses actually said at the time, which is they suspected him of a crime. He probably was in the commission of a crime. And then the only question is...
Well, of course, they couldn't have known, obviously, at the time, but they did a little research. And they found out that he had been arrested at least once before for something, a couple, juvenile, whatever it's for shoplifting or something. I don't know what it was, but apparently this is not a pure, clean person, but who knows. Yeah. So anyway, as you say, the main thing was a lot of people, especially some Hollywood elites, came out and said, this is obviously...
I don't know if they saw the last few seconds of the video or not. Maybe it was put out there before it was truncated and you can see clearly, because there's two situations here. Either they're struggling over the gun and it goes off, in which case it's a self-defense claim straight up, and no jury's going to convict anybody and they better just drop the charges. Or the black guy gets away, starts running away, and gets shot in the back, in which case it's at least a manslaughter conviction.
You would think, though, if that's the case, that there'd be some shots, if it's a shotgun, so there'd be some pellets in his back.
Well, there will be. Either there will be or there won't be. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it'll either be. That's exactly correct. Either if the wound is in the guy's back, then you must convict.
That's it.
So to speak.
That's it.
And if it's not, then you must acquit.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll know more later.
I'll move along here.
Okay.
The question I caught this thing, and I've talked about this before. There's a couple things that are related here. One is, why is the stock market still rallying? If people are how can that be? If we're in, if nobody's working and all this kind of stuff. And of course, what they've done is what they were wondering was they sent everybody $1,200, and I guess they expected that money would be spent on necessities and so forth, going to the store. Apparently, some of the money has been going into the stock market.
Well, okay, here's my theory on that. My theory on that is that the $1,200 is a small percentage of the money that they gave away.
Ah, right, that's right. You're right. I forgot about that.
So they gave away money to rich people.
Right.
Lots more money to rich people who don't need it for their daily survival, so what are you going to do with it?
Right.
You invest it.
You invest it in the stock market. And of course, it is interesting. Well, so that's, as to say, I think that's one of the reasons, is that where else are you going to put the money? It's been that way, as far as I'm concerned, for the last 10,000 points on the stock market. I mean, where are you going to put it?
Well, that's exactly what's happened since the giant inflation of 2008.
Right.
And so,
I mean, the stock market back then was at 7,800 or something.
Yeah, well, after the crash. Yeah, and I mean, and if it were to recover to 12,000 or something, it was up to 13 or something before it crashed. So, okay, so maybe 10 or 11, 12, somewhere around there is a decent valuation, and then we went all the way up to 30.
Yeah. Well, now that's right. Well, let's just go ahead, and it's actually 25.
Well, back down. I mean, we went to 30 before we went back to 20, and now we're at 25.
I don't remember that part.
In January it was 29, 9 something. I think we breached 30.
I don't think so. I think the highest it got was around 20, maybe 28, 26 or something. Anyway, however. Sanders and Kamala Harris, have decided they're passing a bill. They want to give $2,000 a month Not satisfied with it. They want to pass a bill, a new stimulus bill. This is another bill. This is the one that everybody, the Democrats especially, and some of the Republicans are in on this, say this will be the fifth one, I think, the fifth stimulus. This special one is a coronavirus bill, $800 billion, not $1 trillion, but $800 billion. Well, you know that by the time they get, and part of it is going to be the $2,000 a month to everybody. You got the fact you got $1,200, that's gone. Now it's $2,000 a month for at least 3 months until the pandemic is over. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, really? Of course, one of the things, as Peter Schiff pointed out, you start doing that, you ain't never getting it off. I mean, it's going to go on forever. And the thing that other thing that happened, that the federal debt tops $25 trillion for the first time. The federal debt.
Okay.
And remember now, at the beginning, I don't know what at the beginning of Trump, whatever, 3 years ago, I don't know.
We reported on a 23, the turnover to 23.
Oh, is that right? Well, what's interesting is it took over 200 years for the United States to get up to $1 trillion. That was in 1981, right at the beginning of when Reagan started spending money. It topped at $1 trillion. It took 250 years. And I went through the next trillions, and a lot of them were like, one of them was 7 years it took to get $1 trillion. Another one was, a couple of years. This last one was 30 days. 30 days, it took 28 days for another trillion to be added to the debt.
Well, we speculated at the beginning of this that Obama had doubled it from basically from 9 to 20,
right? And
Trump, we were saying was going to take it from 20 to 40. Mm-hmm. So he's on track.
He's on track, yeah.
And
it did take Obama 8 years.
Yeah.
And of course now we're basically at 3.5 years for Trump.
Well, right. Well, it seems to be very close to exponential growth per president.
Well, it's certainly. I'll tell you, when you're talking
Doubling
about 28 days for a trill,
right?
That's
super fast.
That is super fast.
And we'll see. But it's interesting. This is what I've been trying to conceive of how the melt up will happen. That's what I'm going to call it. The economic melt up is what's going to happen. Now, I think I figured out how. What they do is they print tons of money and they give a bunch of cash out there. And of course, the stock market goes up. Everybody with investments their investments go up in nominal terms.
Right.
Everybody gets cash. So they feel like they're getting something for nothing. But reflexively, the prices of everyday goods should start to ratchet up in a way that compensates for that and more. And in that way, they could continue to steal from the money pile, and yet they can say, oh, we're giving you money here, and look at the stock market. And it looks great on paper, but in terms of real value, everybody's value will have diminished. That is, you won't be able to buy as much with your...
Well, they've been talking about this forever. They said for the last 30 years that the basic wages of the regular person, the people that are making $40,000 to $70,000, have stagnated, and they have, because over the last 30 years it's cost more money, to have your basic stuff. Interestingly enough, when they measure a lot of this stuff, they take the fuel out of it. And today, I don't know if you've noticed, but here in Gainesville, they're down under $2 for a gallon of gas, which is pretty amazing. I mean, I remember it wasn't all that long ago. I remember when I went to California 4, 5, 6 years ago, it was $4.
Yeah, well, that's a counter influence. I mean, that's obviously, oil has got its own market.
Well, it does. It does, and you can talk about this. There have been a lot of things of people trying to flood the market and with the Arabs and the Russians having a battle and so forth. But one of the things is, who's driving today? I mean, I'm not.
Well, I think Americans will go back to driving, but what really drives the oil price is not just driving, it's construction. Because it's all the gas you need to move all the equipment and trucks and materials
right.
from one place to another. And what what popped the oil price over the last decades was all that construction China was doing, those cities, those empty cities and that kind of stuff. And I don't know if they're going to do that kind of stuff anymore. And so oil could stay super low for a long time, which that'll help a little bit. But
well, we've seen, here's the deal. We've seen this story before. People don't realize. They said, well, there's some shale people, for instance, that are going out of business.
Yeah.
Up in Canada, they got a real problem in Canada because that's where a lot of the shale oil was coming from.
Well, they can't get it out of the ground for less than $50 or $60.
That's what I'm saying. Is once the price starts to go up, those guys are coming right back. There's going to be a top on this stuff. You can't just get away with it. Yeah, you can. You can't, and you're not going to bankrupt them. The stuff's not going to go away.
Right. Well, I mean, I look at the oil price collapse as a positive thing. Like you said, this helps consumers, drivers, actual people in real monetary terms. Every month your gas bill just got cut in half. I mean, it's $100 or something. I mean, it's a real thing, and for some people it's even more significant. And then of course for deliveries and that kind of stuff, it makes a big difference if you're a truck driver, that kind of stuff.
Well, and there are people, and they're, like you said, they're delivery people.
Right.
I know that my newspaper, for instance, the guy drives, and every morning has to go and throw the paper out.
It's a big thing that should be counted as part of the core inflation or whatever.
And it's not for a reason, I think.
No, well, it's absolutely not for a reason. And watch them factor it back in if it gets to be a positive on the whole thing. But the point is, either way, you watch that particular index. I think is gonna double, even at their stupid core measurements. I think people's living expenses are going to go up significantly.
It is interesting to see what, as I say, of course, the distortions that have been occurring over the last several years, have happened anyway, and suddenly this coronavirus thing is another. Another disturbance in the force.
Yeah.
And it throws everything up in the air.
Well, to the extent that the market was running smoothly, it certainly put a stop to that. And
boy, it has too.
The one thing about this, as hopeful as I am that people will go back to normal very quickly, and I think that they will, there's still the concept that there were a lot of businesses that were running on thin margins to begin with.
A lot of them are, as a matter of course. When you think about it, the grocery stores operate on 2%, 3%, and 4%.
Yeah, and restaurants.
Restaurants, of course. We went over. The other night we went over there. There's like nobody there. The guy said he's really not making it. He can't survive.
He can't even keep the lights on at 25%. No. I can't imagine. So. The question is there going to be a bunch of a cascade of bankruptcies now, and of course that pulls people out. I mean that pulls. Giant more ripple effects could be imminent due to this whole thing that we haven't seen yet. So
yeah, I've seen some. We've seen some people that have gone under bankruptcy protection. But again, a lot of the stuff, the capital stuff doesn't disappear. The buildings don't disappear. The stoves don't disappear.
The capital doesn't, but the organization to run the thing does. And so what we'll see is more of what we have seen, which is little ghost malls, those little outside ghost malls. There's maybe one store that's operating left in.
There's a couple of them like that. I saw one over here where we have some food. There's a little food place in there, but the now tomorrow the hair and nail salons are supposed to open up, but they're under all kinds of, here in town.
Right.
All kinds of restrictions. Mm-hmm. You have to have a mask when you go in there. You're not allowed to talk to the people. No talking, because you might breathe out some stuff.
1 week I give all this stuff.
I saw a list of rules that the friend of ours has posted on her window, on her thing. You have to make an appointment. She will, and when you get there, you have to. She'll let you know when you can come in on your phone.
Oh yeah.
And so this kind of stuff.
Do you have a tissue? I'm about to sneeze.
Yeah, I mean, just so I can.
What?
like you say, what's going to happen? A lot of this stuff is going to be. They talk about it's going to be a while. So some of this stuff filters out.
Well, like I said, there's one piece of information that could restore a lot of it, and that is if it comes out that we've already all had it.
Okay.
If it comes out that everybody's got the antibodies, or so many people have already had it that you're not even worried about it because you knew that guy and he had it and he was fine the whole time, and you were hanging out with him, and so it doesn't matter. And so, but then there's the question of the ripple effect. Then is it your second favorite restaurant closed, and,
right?
And you know the place you used to take the kids for whatever closed, and just so much of the American economy is as people always point out is consumers. It's just us having fun. We're out there just doing stuff we want to do. Well, maybe not so much. Maybe it's sort of the no fun summer, so to speak, and
yeah, well, it could
people
be.
aren't buying mini bikes or go-karts or stuff, or going to amusement parks, or the kind of stuff that we do. Some of the parks are still shut because
I did see an article that I think it's SeaWorld down here is preparing. They haven't talked about how they're going to do it yet, but they're preparing a method to open up. Well, we'll see. Yeah, that's it. Okay, the last thing I've got here, real quick, is this lady who works in a Nevada brothel.
Okay.
At Sherry's Cherries or whatever it is, and she said, and the title of her thing was "Here's How We're Getting Along," and it turns out they're not. The place basically is, for all intents and purposes, shut down. The stimulus bill in Nevada had exclusions for sex workers. In other words, if you're a sex worker, you don't get to collect unemployment. And you're not. There's no way for you to wear a mask or anything like that and still have your job. Other people, a restaurant or something like that, or a bar, maybe you can open up, but not your sex workers. And of course, one of the things that she said was, there are some people that if the law starts to say, well, you can maybe do it under some circumstances. She said, there are some people that really want sex, and they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And so it'll be.
Yeah, like, look, back when the whole industry was illegal.
yeah, they still did it anyway, right? Well, the thing is, yeah, the whole industry. The thing about it is, one of the things that happens, of course, with the people that are out of work, is a number of people that are collecting unemployment insurance. And it turns out that some people actually get a little more with their unemployment insurance than they would if they were working.
Well, yeah, I've seen those reports, and I've seen anecdotal reports of people, business owners can't get their employees to come back to work and stuff. And it seems to me more of a talking point at this point than necessarily a problem. I gotta think that, people want to get back to their work. Guys especially, they don't want to sit around the house with their wife and their kid.
Boy.
Come on. Okay, so, but if they're actually making more money than they were before, well, that's a tough call. Then it's like, well, maybe I'll find something else to do with my time, And,
well, they did say that an awful lot of houses, because Lowe's and Home Depot have been open, that said an awful lot of people are sprucing up their houses.
Oh, I bet, man. Everybody's done their own project.
The corporate is doing.
Oh my God, it's been nuts.
She has been doing
nuts around
everything
here.
About her apartments and the house and everything here.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of this stuff is going to work out. The thing that what I have seen, we finally went over the other night to eat out, and that was kind of stupid in a way, because you had to walk to your table with a mask on, and then when you sit down, you take it off. And all the wait staff had to have their masks on, and you're sitting there thinking, this is. But one thing is that corporate made sure that the tip was huge. I mean, this.
Well, we're trying to take care of the people.
Well, that's the thing, and I would guess that if you've been out of work and you're a wait person, I would bet you anything that your pay is going to go up by 20 or 30%.
Well, you're hoping so, and I can tell you this: the 2 wait staff that I've had so far have been overly attentive. They have been giddy to serve us. I mean, they brought us extra ketchup, mustard, and mayonnaise, and plates and stuff, and I mean double on the butter, whatever you want. They were ready to serve.
I mean, really, like you say, and they would. I mean, there's ended up being 2 or 3 of them that ended up serving us.
Seriously, yeah, we had a tag team.
Tag team, yeah.
Yeah, so you can't beat the service at the restaurants these days.
Well, I'll tell you.
So, all right, well, I've got one thing which I think is pretty interesting, and this is so you've seen the story of Admiral Flynn or General Flynn.
Yes.
And of course, since last we left our heroes, General Flynn Attorney General Barr has dismissed the case against Flynn. So Flynn's walking free. Now, no problem, whatever. When you go back and look at the stuff, it looks like it looks bad. I think it was a prudent decision. People should realize that prosecutors don't drop cases without cause. I mean, there's some reason that they do it. It needs to be done. So it happens quite frequently because you have to. Sometimes you overcharge. It's what happens is people underneath you charge things, and then the superiors say, "Look, you can change that charge. You can go ahead and drop that case or whatever it is." Here's the interesting thing. Did you hear? Well, so there's a bunch of people who started to come out and say AG Barr is in Trump's pocket.
Right.
So the reason he did it is not because of legal reasons.
No.
It's for political reasons.
Right.
Which Barr doesn't strike me at all to be a political guy.
No.
But worse than that, to me, I thought it was just normal political chatter when I heard that. I thought, okay, they're just going after Barr to kind of go after Trump, kind of a thing, and I didn't think anything big of it. But did you hear the phone call, the President Obama commentary on the Flynn firing?
No.
Okay, so this is an audio track that's going around the web, and it could be a deep fake. For all I know,
okay,
whatever. But it appears to be President Obama on a phone call talking with somebody about the General Flynn situation. And his language, I don't think it's a deep fake. I think it's real. And the reason is because people have very particular vocal signatures in terms of the content of their speech.
Okay.
Certain people have styles, and the style of this was very much Obama.
Okay.
And it was a really interesting minute and a half or so of monologue, and it was just Obama talking, and he, in this minute and a half, he implies that the rule of law is breaking down at the Justice Department because of this decision.
Chaos is the word I think he used.
Well, he implied it a few different times, but he talked about a threat to the rule of law, and he talked about these things escalating. He was very careful. This is another signature Obama move. He was very careful not to say the Justice Department has crossed the line and done something illegal, blah, blah, blah. Instead, he said, these are troubling events and all this implication, this language, which allows people to read into it what they want. And to me, this is very interesting because growing up, the rule was always ex-presidents leave shit alone.
Right.
They never stick their schnoz back into the game.
That's right, they don't. Right.
You never heard it at all. Even during, if there was a war, it didn't matter. You just never heard a peep from the other president, from the past president. When you do hear something, it's a political attack. Like we've heard this thing or that thing, political attack. This seems different. It feels different. It feels like Obama is going on offense against the Attorney General for some purpose. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like an attack on Trump necessarily. Now, I didn't hear the whole context. Maybe there's one more in the conversation. Maybe there, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it could have been a deep fake. But I was not the only one with this interpretation. There was a tweet by Thomas Sowell that said exactly the same thing what I was thinking, which is, this sounds like Obama going on offense against the Attorney General, which to me has nasty implications.
Well, he wasn't alone in this. There was a whole raft of people that said that he really needs to get out of there.
That Barr said, that Barr needs to get out of there.
Barr needs to go, yeah.
That's right, but it's different when a president says it.
No, I know.
And when the president says it, like the way that he said it, it was more of an attack on the Justice Department than on Trump. And like I said, I don't know the context. Maybe it's different when you hear the whole thing. But my point, the crazy inference that I drew from all this is that Obama has some vulnerability that he's wants the Justice Department not to pursue.
Yes. Okay.
That somehow maybe he knew about the hit on Trump, the whole Crossfire Hurricane thing, or somehow he was in on something.
They did find out that he knew about something about Flynn. He'd been told, but didn't act on it or something. They said, but apparently he knew about it.
I heard that thing also and didn't pay it any attention because I usually give ex-presidents the benefit of the doubt that they're not involved in these kinds of shenanigans. I figured it stopped at Comey, who is a boob, obviously, but it makes more sense now if Comey was acting at what he at least perceived to be Obama's behest, and what he thought. Comey, you remember the title of Comey's book? A Higher Loyalty?
Oh, is that right? No.
Yeah. To whom?
Yeah.
Right? It's
God.
Yeah, well, that was what he was trying to say, but I think his Freudian mind was trying to let us all know there was something else going on there. So anyway, weird thing, but we'll know in the coming weeks if something crazy happens and Obama gets implicated, and then he comes out after whoever.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can certainly appreciate that. As some of the people in the administration might be saying, "Whoa, wait a minute, I don't want these notes to be come out," because a couple of them did come out, and stuff that had been withheld, and suddenly, let's see.
It could be. I've always felt like they're not going to break the blue line there, that they wouldn't go after the other people in the Justice Department because they just always get the benefit of the doubt to their own people, but
qualified immunity.
Exactly, but this could be different. We could be seeing a little. It could be more adversarial than it has been in the past. So this is the praying mantis going after the murder hornet.
Yes. Did you see that?
Yeah.
My God.
All right. This is thanks Kevin MacLeod for these tracks. This is your copyright notice. We really appreciate it. So thanks everybody for joining us. Come back and see us again on Wednesday, the 13th of May. We will have all the prescient updated information. I am Counselor Curtis. This is Jimmy Doane Show. See ya.